All right, so I'm going to go ahead. So again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2025 Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund Virtual Town Hall. I'm Audrey Johnson, Executive Director of the Maryland Office of Social Equity. The intent of today's conversation is simple but powerful. We are here to highlight how cannabis tax revenue is being reinvested back into Maryland's communities to showcase progress happening at the county level and to make space for your voices and your questions. This town hall is about transparency, accountability, and partnership. It's about ensuring that the communities most harmed by the war on drugs now see and feel the benefits of legalization. And it's about making sure these dollars drive true impact and transformational change that we can put into years to come. Today's agenda reflects that intent. I'll begin with an overview of the Office of Social Equity, followed by a deep dive into the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund from our Deputy Director, Courtney Davis. We'll then hear from Marcus Webster, Hartford County Administrator, and James Kitchin, who is Special Assistant to the County Executive of Arundel County, who will showcase how they are putting Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund dollars to work on the ground. Finally, we'll create space for question and answer and then have closing reflections. The Office of Social Equity was established by the Cannabis Reform Act of 2023. Our mission is to promote economic opportunity and equity in Maryland's adult use cannabis market and to ensure that communities disproportionately harmed by prohibition are at the center of reinvestment. At our heart, the Office of Social Equity exists to help Maryland communities learn, heal, build, and grow. That's our guiding purpose, and it's what shapes everything that we do. Our focus areas are intentional. We work to ensure the diverse participation in the cannabis market, provide resources and support for social equity applicants and licensees, and address the long-term impacts of cannabis prohibition on communities. Our responsibilities also include reviewing laws and regulations through an equity lens, delivering technical assistance, and overseeing Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund. So, what's our progress? In just 2 years, Maryland has made historic progress. We conducted the largest social equity licensing round in the nation, awarding 188 licenses exclusively to social equity applicants. We delivered more than 22 technical assistance programs and events to support those licensees. Governor Moore took bold action by issuing 181,000 cannabis-related pardons, restoring opportunity to Maryland's most impacted by prohibition. This is a powerful example of how Maryland is approaching cannabis reform with equity at the center. And more than $93 million has been distributed through the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund to jurisdictions across Maryland, ensuring resources are flowing into every county and community. Taking together these actions show that equity has not just been a value, it's been a result. The licensing round reflected Maryland's diversity, with more than half of all new licenses awarded to African American entrepreneurs, alongside Latino, Asian, Native, and multiracial business owners. Nearly all licenses went to first-time cannabis business owners, opening the industry to new voices and new opportunities. This is equity in action. It is an honor for our office to oversee these dollars, to work with county leaders and commissions, and to ensure these funds are invested in ways that deliver outcomes communities can see and feel. These funds come directly from cannabis sales, and we are grateful to our legislators and state leadership for being intentional and ensuring that while legalizing cannabis, they prioritize reinvestment in communities most harmed by the war on drugs. With that, I'll now turn it over to our Deputy Director, Courtney Davis, who will go deeper into the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund, its structure, its purpose, and the insights from our most recent statewide survey.
Thank you so much, Audrey. And as Audrey mentioned, my name is Courtney Davis. I am the Deputy Director for the Office of Social Equity, and we are really pleased that you all were able to join us this morning. Next slide, please. This is what I like to refer to as our cannabis revenue tax pie. This is how Maryland distributes cannabis tax revenue. Anytime you go to a dispensary, there's a 12% sales tax. The biggest share of that, which is 35%, goes to the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund. And it's a major commitment, as Audrey mentioned, to community repair. There are additional portions all set at 5%, which go for each county, the Cannabis Public Health Fund, as well as the Cannabis Business Assistance Fund. The remaining funds go to support the state's general fund, whatever's left over. This model ensures that we're using cannabis revenue to repair those harms and to reinvest in the communities most affected by past enforcement. And the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about specifically what the Community Reinvestment Repair Fund is. It provides local funding for community-based initiatives, especially in areas disproportionately impacted by cannabis prohibition. The allocation formula that we came up with is based on 20 years of cannabis possession charges by each county. So it's grounded in real data. The Cannabis Reform Act, which is the bill that also created our office, defines a disproportionately impacted area as an area that had above 150% of the state's 10-year average for cannabis possession charges. So for this fund, we work with the Maryland Judiciary Administrative Office of Courts, and they provided us with 2 data sets with cannabis charges covering the periods from 2002 to 2009, 2010 to 2022. And so we cleaned those data sets prior to combining them into a final 20-year data set for analysis. And after we completed that analysis, we came up with 85 zip codes. And we were able to identify those in 20 jurisdictions. There were 4 jurisdictions that did not have a disproportionately impacted area because we didn't have enough data to collect. And so those 4 counties were not included. But on the next slide, you will see exactly the disproportionately impacted areas. And I apologize, this might be a little bit small, but you'll see that most of the counties have at least 1 zip code, excluding Caroline, Garrett, Kent, and Queen Anne's County. On the next slide, we'll get into exactly how much money has been collected in fiscal years 24 and 25. So we have a grand total of $96 million. And as you could see, the CRRF distribution percentage is in that second column. And so the jurisdictions that had more arrests are the ones that are receiving our larger share of that 35%. And so you'll see here, Allegheny County is getting about 1%, and Arundel about 6.99. I won't read them all off, but this information is available in our report. It's reported out also every quarter by the comptroller, which is the agency that collects the funds. Now I'll get into some of the guidelines. Counties can use some of their CRF dollars for community programs and administrative expenses. The administrative expenses are up to 15%. And so that is not to say that you should use all of that 15%, but it is up to 15% for any administrative costs that you might need. And we understand that because we also have administrative costs that are associated with being the administrator of this fund. Funds cannot be used for law enforcement or to replace existing government programs, so you cannot supplant with these funds. The oversight is handled by our office, and the report, similar to the ones that we're discussing today, will be published to ensure transparency and accountability. During the 2025 legislative session, we worked with Senator Washington to further clarify OSE's role as administrators of the fund, and we also made some changes to some of those reports, which we are going to fix in the next legislative session. And so those that know government and policy making, it's every year you try to make it better. And so we want to really make sure that the time that we're investing in determining how these funds should be spent is well utilized, and we don't want to produce reports that are duplicative or unnecessary. So we are going to go back to the drawing board next year to figure out exactly what reports are necessary. Last year, we conducted a statewide survey. We used SurveyMonkey. We also had some in-person town halls and utilized our contact list to send out a QR code for folks to understand and let us understand how they view CRRF and how they would like to see these funds be utilized. We received over 1,400 responses, and what we learned is that about 76% of respondents said that they were at least somewhat familiar with the fund. Many individuals representing organizations expressed an interest in applying. And most importantly, the top areas that were prioritized were mental health services and youth programming. That essentially matched what we heard in 2023, which was the first year that we conducted this survey. This kind of continuity shows that we're on the right track, but it also shows where we need to grow. 17 of 24 jurisdictions reported attending and participating in our town hall meetings that we had, and they left with a greater understanding of CRRF. Next slide, please. Some of the key themes that we discovered is that there's a very clear education gap. About 40% of folks didn't know much about CRRF, they didn't know much about our office, and they weren't super familiar with the administrative process. And that's understandable because our office is an administrator of the fund, but the funds don't even pass through our hands. They go directly to the jurisdiction. So what you're going to have is 24 different administrative processes to access these funds in each jurisdiction. We realized that people wanted more equity. There's concerns that larger nonprofits might dominate some of the funding. People wanted to have a more clear criteria that prioritizes the most impacted, especially for those that didn't have any disproportionately impacted areas. You know, what is the definition of low income areas? The survey validated our priorities. Mental health, education, housing, and civic engagement definitely rose to the top. And so we were really excited to be able to, you know, be transparent and share this, and then also share what we're planning to do about it. Next slide, please. So for some of the strategic actions that we're planning to deploy from some of the key themes that we learned is that we're going to launch quarterly webinars with jurisdictions to keep communities informed. We want to collaborate with the jurisdictions and help be a sounding board, but also to help in outreach and reaching community members that are wanting to understand how they can access these funds in these jurisdictions. We're hoping to improve real-time data reporting to build trust. As I mentioned, the funds are collected by the comptroller's office. They are sent out to the jurisdictions. The comptroller reports quarterly on how much money is collected in each of those, the counties, how much money went to the Cannabis Public Health Fund, and they publish how much money went to CRRF as a whole, but they do not publish county-specific data. And so that's what our office would like to do, is make sure that individuals know how much money their county received, how much they've spent, how much is left, when their RFP processes are, what money's going to county programming, et cetera. So we're hoping to improve that real-time data reporting. We're building an outcome framework and performance measures to guide accountability. We're working on publishing our RFP to find an organization that can kind of support us in that work, and also offering technical assistance to county staff to strengthen the implementation and reporting. So what's next for us? We're asking every jurisdiction to answer one central question when they think about how to spend this money. How does this grant repair, reverse harm from the overcriminalization of cannabis? That's what this fund is really about, repairing the damage that's done and intentionally investing in repairing these communities. This question, we feel, will guide distribution plans, community input, and also performance measurement going forward. We're also working on drafting new regulations as mandated in Senate Bill 894 that provide clear and actionable guidance. This will help jurisdictions understand what's allowable, how to plan, and how to report effectively. We also have we're planning to launch a longitudinal study, because one of the things that we realize is, data is very, very important. And so we want to be able to show the story that this $96 million was invested in this way, and here's how we were able to show what the real impact is. That starts now if we're able to get some of that initial data gathered, and then every year gather data in a similar form, we will be able to get a nice longitudinal study in 5 to 10 years. And our goal is to kind of reduce some confusion and build consistency across the jurisdiction. So that's something else that we're planning on working on. We want to make CRRF feel real and accessible. So that means more outreach, more town halls, more FAQs and tools to help counties as well as community members, because we want to make sure that everyone understands exactly how this fund works and feels like they have a seat at the table. So many times people find out about opportunities like this after decisions have already been made, and we're hoping to eliminate that. We're helping counties align their CRRF funds with local needs and our statutory goals. And we're also hoping to promote some alignment with other state funds like Blueprint for Maryland, the Enough Initiative, and the Opioid Restitution Fund. I know Marcus is going to talk a little bit about that later, but there's there's several pots of state money that counties have access to, and sometimes it's nice if the county is thinking of this in a comprehensive way as opposed to kind of one-offs. There's a lot of opportunity to make these different pots of money complementary. And so that is all that I have. I am going to now kick it off to Marcus Webster, who is the administrator for the Office of Drug Control Policy in Harford County, to talk a little bit about their CRRF administrative process. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Before I get started, I just want to express gratitude for Director Johnson and Deputy Director Davis, as well as the entire team at the Office of Social Equity. This work is meaningful, so I thank you for your passion and your work as we continue to unfold the CRRF and the other efforts you do to increase equity in the state. Next slide, please. As they mentioned, my name is Marcus Webster. I have the privilege of serving as the administrator of the Office of Drug Control Policy here in Harford County. Very briefly, just to talk about what the Office of Drug Control Policy is. Historically, we have been the lead prevention agency within Harford County, offering education, prevention resources, and support across the county, such as through the school system, health department, as well as our core service agency. We also work very closely with recovery community organizations, sober living homes in the area, in order to fill gaps when it comes to the continuum of care for those in active addiction through recovery. But upon taking this role in August of 2024, we were right at the kind of precipice of the things like the CRRF and the Opioid Restitution Fund, at which point, as was alluded to briefly ago, we began to identify how can we maximize those dollars to really increase and promote transformative change within Harford County. Our mission as a division is to continue to promote and provide prevention services through strategies utilizing the resources of both our public and private agencies and citizens, as well as ensuring and adopting best practices when it comes to the funding we oversee. Next slide, please. So I want to talk very briefly about how we got to where we are. As we mentioned, it's been a long road to get to cannabis recreational legalization within the state. But I want to pick up in October of 24. That is when the Harford County Council formally passed Bill 24-30, which established our local community reinvestment repair fund. I think it was that evening at about 8:30 at night that we got to work in planning our community input sessions, because we really wanted to hear what our community felt about regarding these funds and what uses did they want to see the funds apply to. So I'll get a little bit deeper into that in a minute in that process, but also in February of 2025, we released our competitive funding opportunity, and in June, this past June, we announced our initial awardees, which I'll get into as well. Next slide, please. So here's the timeline that was established upon the immediate passage of Bill 24-30. Throughout December 24 to January 25, we conducted a series of community input sessions, and then we released our notice of funding availability in February of 25. Our applications were due back in March, and we reviewed those as a very diverse team, which was a cross-section involving our health department, our local government officials as well, and representatives across our various departments. And we announced our awards leading into summer of 2025. Next slide, please. So community input was something that we really emphasized out the gate. I myself am an individual who grew up in one of those disproportionately impacted areas as identified by the Office of Social Equity. I was born and raised in Harford County. So as we went and gathered information regarding what we should do with this fund, it was extremely personal to us. So beginning in December of 24, we conducted 6 community input sessions in identified disproportionately impacted areas, as well as other parts of the counties, with the intent of being inclusive to not just individuals, but our community leaders or organizations that serve those impacted communities. As you'll see, we conducted 2 input sessions in Edgewood, which was a notified zip code as well. The second Edgewood input session was actually a request by a community advocacy group in our area. And we also included a virtual input session so that we could really increase and maximize our ability to collect input. Our agendas for those meetings consisted of the following: providing an overview, as we did to start this meeting, how the CRRF works. We identified potential uses. We then talked about our application process, and we're very unique in the way that we provide grant opportunities. We utilize an online database to host our solicitations. So we wanted to make sure our community providers or those interested in applying were familiar with how to utilize that system. We then hosted a significant part of the meeting through community input and open discussion, and then we closed out. And we did that for all 6 sessions. Next slide, please. So we identified our potential uses, and I want to give another shout out to the OSE team. Through their 2023 report, they identified some strategies and uses through their collection of input as well. And we identified these 9, ranging anywhere from mental health and substance use services, all the way down to parks and recreational facilities. So as we put out our notice of funding availability, we encouraged our applicants to fall into one of these local framework areas. And as you can see, as I get into our survey a little bit later, it felt very similar to what the state had identified as well for potential uses for the fund. Next slide, please. So parallel to the community input sessions, we also conducted our own survey. Next slide, please. I'll get into the content there. In addition to the community input sessions I mentioned, we conducted our own survey. We were very happy with the responses that were gathered through the state survey, but we noticed that we only had 54 individuals from Harford County that responded. So what we wanted to do is we want to double down and increase our reach. And our survey actually ended up yielding about 159 responses, which really helped to paint a picture for how our county wanted to see these funds used in their communities. Next slide, please. So on that survey, we asked a series of 10 questions. Number one, we wanted to know how you found out about it. We wanted to know if you lived in Harford County, and if not, what jurisdiction did you reside in? What was your zip code? Which of the following best described you in terms of racial background and demographics? We wanted to know age. We wanted to know household income. We wanted to know if they were affiliated with a community organization, and if so, which organization? We also wanted to gauge whether or not elected officials were taking part in the survey. The next one, number 9, was something that was deeply personal as well. As we wanted to know, have that person completing the survey or a family member been personally affected by the criminalization of cannabis in the past? And then last but not least, in regards to the fund, we wanted to know which issues are most important for us to address with the funds in their communities. Next slide, please. So here you'll see our top 3 preferences per the survey and our bottom 3. Without a doubt, education and after school programs were certainly a deep need when it came to community members. Mental health and substance use services, as well as youth engagement and mentorship programs. Ranking on the lower end was criminal justice reforms, small business grants, and parks and recreational facilities. Next slide, please. So just a quick recap and all this information. Thank you for sharing the survey as well. As you can tell, email was the way that our community members found out about it the most. Through ODCP and our tabling and outreach events, we pushed the survey very heavily. We tapped into a lot of those community advocacy groups and organizations to help us spread the word. But through emails, through recommendations, and community input sessions, as well as other means, we saw significant outreach in that as well. And surprisingly enough, for those who completed the survey, we actually saw a large number of responses from our 21014 zip code, which is Bel Air. Not an identified zip code, but we did receive a lot of input, which helped us to really paint the picture as well. Next slide, please. The majority of our respondents identified as white. As you'll see here, through our mid-range, the highest number of respondents was individuals aged 55 to 64, followed closely with the older population of 65 to 74 and 45 to 54. And our significant portion of our respondents, as I said, identified as white, with household incomes varying widely, but with the largest group earning over $150,000 annually. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, really tapping into our local organizations, those who are actively on the streets and serving our citizens every single day was important to us. So here I just want to highlight our organizations that really helped to spread the word when it came to the survey, and we wanted to shout those out. Here you'll see a variety of historically Black fraternities and sororities, as well as a lot of community groups that are established within those disproportionately impacted areas as well. Next slide, please. Here you'll see what Harford County ranked as their preferences when it came to uses for CRRF. As I mentioned, education after school programs, mental health and substance use, as well as youth engagement and mentorship programs scored very highly. And then we saw a huge dip off when it came to the other 7 priorities that were listed as well. And as I mentioned, of course, small business grants and parks and rec facilities ranking very low in their responses. Next slide, please. So as a result of the survey, we really came to about 4 conclusions that I want to highlight at this time. As I mentioned, community input sessions were instrumental in creating a dialogue when it came to what our community wants and what our community needs. And their participation in the survey really helped to provide additional insight that we felt was not captured in the initial survey, but really helped to guide our process as we move forward. Harford County as well, we wanted to note that the public perceptions regarding cannabis are ever changing, especially when we look at the Office of Drug Control Policy as a prevention agency. But we want to understand and utilize community input, not just in regards to use of the funds, but their perceptions of how cannabis is perceived and the lasting impact of prohibition in Harford County. And of course, we wanted to use our funds to promote healing in our communities that were most impacted. And then we also want to note that the CRRF differs drastically from other funding sources that we provide as a county. Of course, its intent is to serve low-income and disproportionately impacted communities, but we also wanted to elevate our grassroots communities that would otherwise be unable to obtain funding from other governmental sources. Next slide, please. So very quickly, I want to talk about our CRRF awardees. Next slide. So as a result of the first competitive process, we awarded 13 organizations, which encompassed a variety of framework areas. A lot of these are working very heavily. You'll see some longstanding, more recognizable organizations such as Boys and Girls Club. Harford County Public Schools was also awarded a variety of funding as well to help increase their mentoring programs, as well as experiential activities for youth who attend schools and DIAs. We also wanted to really extend this as well, and we often refer to casting a wide net. As you'll see, we have everything from disconnecting, encouraging adolescents to disconnect and explore nature, to promote mental well-being. We have suicide prevention. We have job training and workforce development through a recovery house program that operates in the northern end of the county that's increasing access to the southern end. We also have a variety of job skills and workforce development programs through STEM programming, most notably through the Chosen Development Corporation, as well as the Discovery Center at Water's Edge. Next slide, please. Here you'll see just a quick breakdown of how those organizations and those awardees fell into our framework funded areas. As you'll see, there was a heavy investment in youth engagement and mentoring, as well as education after school programs. A lot of these providers, in the way that they submitted their applications and were awarded, helped to encompass a lot of those. One most notably is the Zeta Phi Beta sorority, who covered multiple framework areas through their increase to healthcare access and services, through diabetes testing and other health-related needs, as well as mentoring programs for young ladies, and things such as housing and homelessness prevention, the provision of food, a supplemental food assistance to our local schools as well. Next slide, please. So lastly, I want to touch on some other areas that we are exploring and have identified within the county. This past August, we actually created a set-aside block grant, which we're referring to as the Harford Education and Reinvestment Trust. Mentorship remains a key priority on the part of our county executive and administration, as well as increasing access to after-school and education programming. Harford County Public Schools was provided this additional block grant to help maximize their impact through inside the schools, as well as cover areas that we may have missed. So this is a relatively new funding opportunity. We created it a little different from our other application periods. This is actually a rolling grant window. So we have 3 windows throughout the school year in which the school system can apply for these block grant dollars. They are reviewed, they are scored as similar to the competitive awardees, but this is a separate set aside, which allows us to continue to meet the needs and the ever-changing needs of our school system, while also focusing, as I mentioned, on those other grassroots community organizations that would otherwise not have access to funding. And last but not least, this is another big initiative on the part of our county executive. This past summer, through our Parks and Recreational Department, we set aside CRRF funds to provide a free summer camp opportunity for residents within the Edgewood community. So our adolescents in that community were able to take part in that summer camp at absolutely no charge, and that was something that we really enjoyed taking part in as well and supporting. Next slide, please. All right, just very briefly, so in addition to releasing the funds through ODCP, we wanted to adopt a series of strategies to address additional jurisdictional challenges. We know that public health concerns, social equity, as well as public perception and social impact are key, and we need to continue to address those as we move forward, not just providing transactional relationships through release of funds, but also actively developing strategies to address those, as well as increasing community involvement, accessibility, restoring our communities impacted by cannabis prohibition, and monitoring changing perceptions. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you having me as part of this panel, and I look forward to answering questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Marcus. We will now hear from James Kitchin, Special Assistant to the County Executive for Anne Arundel County. He is also joined by Alicia Herrick-Blaine, Assistant Planning Director for Arundel Community Development Services.
All right, thank you so much for having me. Let's just go to the next slide. So in Anne Arundel County, we established a law in late 2023, which set up a commission that was charged with administering a grant application process and then making funding recommendations to our county executive. So the law passed at the end of 2023, and next slide, we took the better part of the next year really setting up the commission. Can we go to the next slide, please? And so our commission is comprised of 13 voting members. The bulk of them are appointed directly by our county executive, with a couple of the recommendations having to come through our county council. And we also have a couple of seats reserved for the city of Annapolis. Our membership needs to be inclusive of, at least, if we could back up a little bit, please, one of the following 7 areas. So workforce or economic development, health, including public health. And so it's not that our commission has, one seat for each of these, and when that person leaves, you have to reappoint somebody from that spot. We can have multiple commissioners who all have experience in education, or all have experience in social work or community organizations. And you can have one commissioner that, it has expertise in multiple of these areas. But what we're saying is, holistically, our voting membership needs to have experience and expertise in these 7 different areas. And so the commission began meeting and doing their deliberative work in September of 2024. Next slide, please. The county executive made the Arundel Community Development Services the grant administrator for this work. So they provide staff support to the commission and also help administer the actual grant. The county executive felt that it was important to have an experienced grant administrator available to give that support to our commission and make that advice as they were going through this process for the first time. Next slide, please. Similar to the report that came out from OSE in 2023, our commissioners looked at that report, took their own knowledge of Anne Arundel County and our communities, and came up with these 4 areas for us to focus our grant dollars on. So ours are focused on housing and homeless prevention, mental health and substance abuse services, workforce development, and then education, youth enrichment, and after-school activities. Next slide. So here is a visual and list of the disproportionate areas in Anne Arundel County. And you'll notice that 2 of the zip codes are a different shade, and there's asterisks by them on the bottom as well. If you go to the next slide, what we did here is we took data also, and we added 2 zip codes to the DIAs from OSE that they had identified based on these criteria. So we took census tracts that had the percentage of Black households was greater than the county average of Black households, and the census tracts in which the median household income was less than the county's median household income. And so that added 2 zip codes in the Fort Meade and Maryland City Laurel area in western Anne Arundel County. Next slide. All right, so for this first year, the commission voted on how much money to actually allocate in this grant administrative process. And so this process, they voted to put out just under $1.8 million in this first round of it, which did leave, at the time they were voting on it, about $4 million in the pot to allocate in future fiscal years. There were a handful of reasons why the commission came to this decision, but 2 of them were as follows. One, they just really wanted to be able to learn from the first year of doing this process and make sure that the grant funds were getting into and actually helping the targeted populations in those disproportionately areas. So they wanted the ability to learn from this process, make tweaks, take feedback, bring in new strategies in out years, and make this process even better as we move forward. Secondly, there was discussion around wanting to moderate the expectations of the organizations we were funding. We felt like if we had just put out $5 million in the first one, and a lot of those funds were in those one-time conversion fees for the licenses, that it'd create expectation that that much amount of money would be available in out years. And so we did want to kind of moderate expectations for what the future of this funds would look like. And now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Elisha to walk through some more of the technical aspects of the grant timeline and qualifications and items like that. Elisha.
Thanks, James. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning. As you can see on your screen is our grant timeline for local fiscal year 2026. As James mentioned, we took a little bit of time to really kind of get the process oriented with our commission. And as we got that together, we began doing marketing for the application in March of this year. And in April, made it available through our application software program that we use to administer and manage all of the grants that ACDS administers. That's called Neighborly. And so we made that available to the public through Neighborly. And across the month of April, we held a variety of virtual and in-person trainings to get people accustomed to not only the application process within Neighborly, but also to educate them about what the fund was and what were the priority areas, not only from a geographic perspective, but also from a topical perspective, as James mentioned earlier, of the 4 topical areas that we prioritized for funding. In mid-May, the application closed, and we used the summer of 2025 and into September to review those applications and to develop an initial set of recommendations. Of the applications received, we received more than $23 million in request, despite, as James mentioning, us having a little more than $1.775 million available for funding. We, in just the last week, have finalized these recommendations to our county executive, who is in the current process of reviewing those recommendations and making his final determinations. And so we anticipate making those notifications about awards and who was unable to receive funding known to grantees and known to applicants, rather, within the next 1 to 2 weeks at most. Next slide, please. So you can see here on your slide what we asked from all eligible applicants. We did ask that they have a 501c3 status and that they were in good standing with the Maryland State Department of Assessments and Taxation, that they did provide direct services to county residents, and then some of the basic governance aspects of a nonprofit, that they have a board of directors, that they have filed the IRS 990 or have audited financials, that they meet the insurance requirements that ACDS requires for all of our grantees, and that they were able to comply with the terms and conditions of the grant agreement. And then as those last two, you can see here that they met the faith-based requirements, that they not engage in any proselytizing activity. And at the bottom, you can see that we did have an option for organizations that might not be a registered 501c3, that if they were an unregistered organization, they could apply in coordination with a fiscal sponsor. And so we really felt that that was an important aspect, and there was a lot of robust discussion amongst the commission around that aspect of the application process. Next slide, please. You can see here that there were 2 main types of grants that we made available. First was a multi-year for $75,000 to $100,000 for up to 3 years, meaning you could have an award up to $300,000. And then in tier 2, what we called the tier 2, those were one-time grants for a maximum of $75,000. Next slide, please. The eligible activities that we allowed for this grant really focused mainly on operating costs, recognizing that this is a lot of the gap funding that a lot of nonprofits or organizations working in the county often need, is that real fungible money that can be used for really anything. And so while we allow for administrative costs and fringe costs and one-time purchases, really the focus was a lot on operating costs for many of the applicants. Next slide, please. So here, as I mentioned previously, you can see that in that lower right-hand corner, you can see that we did receive, as I mentioned, a little over $23 million in requested funds from 105 applications. Those are the 4 issue areas that you can see on your left-hand side, and then coming across the top are those tier 1 applications and those tier 2 applications. Keeping in mind, again, that that first column, as it says, is multi-year request. You can see that by offering that to the public, we really did see the demand come in on that line. But when folks had the opportunity to ask for that multi-year money, that's when what they came in and asked for. Just to be cognizant of time, if we could move to the next slide. You can see here our prospective local fiscal year 27 grant timeline. We are in the process of reviewing our application for the next year. And we anticipate that application again will come out via Neighborly in mid-January with a closing in mid to late February, and that we are hoping with the FY27 grant timeline to get a bit more on cycle with our other grants that ACDS administers on behalf of Anne Arundel County. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be with you all this morning, and I look forward to answering any questions.
And if I can, just to close out our section, and just also want to say thank you to the Office of OSE just for being partners and providing guidance in this, but also ACDS staff and really the commissioners. This was a lot of work for a volunteer commissioners. They put hours and hours into going through this. And so just want to thank everyone who's been a part of that process in Anne Arundel.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, James, for sharing Anne Arundel's approach, as well as Elijah. And also want to thank Marcus for highlighting Hartford County's progress. And of course, Courtney for grounding us with the statewide community reinvestment and repair report. At this point, we want to hear from you. And so we'll now open the floor for questions and comments. Please use the Q&A box or raise your hand. We'll work through as many as we can. I know that we just have about 10 minutes left. But once you raise your hand and we're called on, please, you have the ability, I see some of you already coming on camera, which is great, but you have the ability to unmute yourself and ask your question. So again, this is your opportunity to engage directly with us and with our county partners. So I encourage you to share what's on your mind. So all right, I'm gonna call out some folks from the hands. Let's see. Virgil Boysaw Jr., can you come off mute? All right, I'm gonna jump to the next person. Brandon Matthews.
Yes, I am I work for, or I volunteer my time for at a PTA at a high school, and we have like it's called the after prom. It's where after the prom, all the students, all the seniors can come to this it's a sports complex, and basically we allow for the prom, for the people who attend prom, to at least be able to have a safe environment and not be out drinking or getting in trouble or something like that. So I was just wondering, would that be something that I could apply for?
Brandon, where are you? What jurisdiction?
Baltimore County.
Okay, so we don't have Baltimore County reps on here. Courtney, do you want to address this question?
Sure. Yes. So each county is going to have their own administrative process to access the funds. So Baltimore County they have passed their law. They are in the process of setting up their grant application, but they are currently not awarding. I do believe that they had a survey maybe last year that they had pushed out to the residents, but we are not actually giving out the money. The money goes straight to the jurisdictions, and they determine how it's going to be spent. So what we're helping to do is just make sure that you guys, community organizations, know that this money exists. So you can take that question to Baltimore, to your county executive's office, and ask them, hey, what's up with CRRF? I'm an organization, I'd like to apply, I'd like to be involved in this process of determining how the money should be spent.
Thank you, Courtney. Brandon, hopefully that answered your question. I'm going to keep going so we can get as many as we can. Corey Hardinger, and try to get your question in so we can address it real quickly.
Hey, this is Corey from Carroll County. My question is, if you are developing frameworks for outcomes and performance measures, should we, we are looking at releasing funds hopefully to start services in January, but concerned about what data we might anticipate collecting, or should we collect internal data and then wait for future guidance regarding any performance measures and outcomes that we would be required to report to you?
Yes, we are in the process of developing those. So, unfortunately, a lot of this isn't perfect timing. You know, you've heard from 2 counties that have already done all of their process for their first grant. Some counties are developing theirs at the same time that OSE is. We have regulations, and we also have an RFP to help support some of that statewide work. So if you guys are, and another thing is that a lot of jurisdictions already collect a lot of data. And so we also want to know what you guys are already collecting so that we can make sure that what we're requesting is in alignment with that. So I hope that kind of answers your question. I mean, if you guys are in the process of developing something now, then, that's kind of what you're doing.
We have a couple frameworks that we use for data collection, like results-based accountability, but also thinking about demographic and income data that we might need to collect or want to collect, just so that we don't fund programs that ultimately can't provide the data that we would be looking for is our concern.
Okay, well, if you want to email me, I think we've met before. I'm happy to.
Yes, we have. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
We can touch base. Yep. I'll
Yes.
let you guys move on to someone else. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
If you don't mind, can I touch on that question as
Yes.
well? So through our reporting, we are collecting data based on individuals served through each of those framework areas. So for instance, individuals served by youth engagement and mentoring, etc. We also have some sub goals associated with it, and I'll touch on those. We want to identify individuals served by change in service, which could be improved access to a service or benefit, no longer receiving services, etc. We want our awardees to identify income level as well to make sure we're meeting the requirements for the legislation, priority populations, and then of course additional demographic information such as race, whether they're Hispanic or Latino, as well as individuals served by geographic location, all relevant to what we're required to do for the legislation in the initial set of our framework.
Great. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I was looking at the chat, and it looks like Baltimore County has a survey that's active right now. So I'm just going to grab this survey and I'll put this in the chat because I know that Brandon had a question about that.
Okay, I'm gonna jump to, I see a few more hands, but let me switch to the chat really quickly. There's a question, do you have to be a business or resident in your counties to apply for these grants?
Do you, well, I know for James, I remember his slide said that you had to provide services in Anne Arundel County.
Yes, that's correct. So we had all of the organizations that apply specify that they were serving residents of Anne Arundel County, and we also requested on the application whether or not they were serving residents in any of the DIAs. And so through those 2 questions, the review committees were able to elevate which organizations should receive priority.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see. Someone asked about Calvert County. They're not, I don't know if they're on or attending and listening. Do you know the status of Calvert County, Courtney, in terms of their process?
No. Jennifer,
Okay.
I know her name, but I don't know where they are in their process.
Okay. I think one of the things as we have folks here, for the contact information that we have for counties or commissions that have been established, that would be points of contact for you in those jurisdictions, we can share that information. But I'm going to try to get to a couple more questions. We have 3 minutes left. And I have a question here in the chat. It says, can you provide clarity on when the RFP for the Community Reinvestment Repair Fund will be released? What specific requirements potential vendors must meet in order to qualify, and what key problems or needs vendors are expected to address through their proposals. So that's for you, Courtney.
Sorry, I had to find my screen again. We're hoping to, we're currently working with the Department DBM to, not DBM, Procurement Office to post our RFP in Emma. But we're looking to have an organization help us support our programmatic goals, develop a statement of purpose, the outcome framework development, the performance measurement, and ensure consistency and feasibility and data collection and reporting. They're going to support us with the stakeholder and research engagement, some of the technical assistance that we are mandated to provide to jurisdictions, and also to help collect information about that collaborative work that I discussed about some of the pots of money that's already being deployed currently and utilized, and finding ways to make that more collaborative.
Okay, thank you. Cassandra.
Good morning. I'm from the Harford County Caucus of African American Leaders, and I hope that this isn't duplicative, but I was having difficulty hearing one of the questioners. Is there a requirement that there be some kind of assessment of whether or not the grant dollars are going to the specific zip codes that have been identified, and in what percentage? Is there a requirement that each county report back? And I believe Harford County may be doing some of this, but I'm just wondering, statewide, is there a requirement? Is there an assessment tool?
So we're in the process of providing our guidance, but the law mandates that the funds are spent in disproportionately impacted areas or low income areas. There are four counties.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Now, I understand what the law requires, but if it's not being tested, assessed, overseen, I know that it might not happen. So what I'm just trying to determine is there some tool that is in place or will be put in place to ensure that the law is being followed?
Yes, that is a big part of what the bill that was passed this year gave our office oversight to do, which will also be included in our RFP and in our development of our guidance. But yes, there will be, we have reporting requirements, and we're kind of coming up with creative ways to figure out exactly how the money is being spent, and if it's not being spent in the correct way, what can we do about it? So that is exactly what our office is working on currently.
All right, so I want to respect everyone's time, and I know we're over time, so I want to close us out. We have questions. I believe we will work to get answers to these questions for you all. I want to first thank our speakers, Courtney Davis, Marcus Webster, James Kitchin, Elijah. I don't have your name, I'm sorry, but thank you for joining us. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here. Today we've seen how the fund is being put into action through Harford County investing in youth mentoring and workforce development, and Arundel establishing commission to guide the reinvestment. And so we appreciate the work that you all have been doing. We've also been reminded of why this work really matters. The fund is not just about the dollars, it's also about repairing the harm, restoring opportunity, and creating long-term transformational change in communities that, again, were disproportionately impacted by cannabis prohibition. It is an honor that OSE to oversee these dollars and to partner with county leadership, community organizations to make sure the investments we make today will stand as proof years from now on how Maryland got this right. Looking ahead, our office will continue to host these town halls. We encourage you to stay engaged. We also will work with the municipalities and support them in any way that we can to ensure information flows and it continues to be a transparent process. We believe these conversations work best when they're rooted locally with residents and organizations at the table. So we'll also, as OSE, keep reporting on the quarterly breakdown of the disbursements by jurisdictions. So you all, again, are informed and aware that transparency is essential. So I'll stop there and just say thank you again for your engagement, for your partnership, and for your continued voice in shaping this work. Please stay connected with us. We have the Bud Bulletin, which is here on the QR code, which is our monthly newsletter. And let's keep building toward a stronger, more equitable Maryland. Thank you, everyone.